What's going on, guys? Sam here with Scale Labs, and we are back with another episode number 3, and we actually have the world champ here with us tonight. So the 2026 Chili Bowl Invitational class winner, Tyler Hooks. How we doing, Tyler?
How's it going? I'm kind of moving around. Gonna move around during this.
I'm assuming you're doing rebuilding a kit or working on a car or something, or
Building freshies. Everybody was kind enough after the Chili Bowl to let me shelf the cars. So getting stuff lined out. I'm gonna go race this weekend and get ready for Motorama. So yeah, just trying to finish everything up.
nice. Heck yeah. Yeah, I have I got my sprint car done last night, and then I just got to get the electronics back in it, and then I have a late model fully go through so I can race this weekend. So I'm right there with you.
Sweet. Sounds like a plan.
But yeah, so yeah, absolutely. So so you call Texas home now. We were talking before the call, or you've always called Texas home, other than some time in Florida, obviously. But tell me about what's going on down there in Texas right now, and weather and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it was cold. It's not cold today, but yeah, everybody around the country had the freeze last weekend, and it got pretty damn cold down here. And like I was talking to the guys that live up in like the Indiana area, and they got like 10 inches and everything shut down. It's like, well, we got one and everything shut down, so we're not the same. But yeah, so we got a bunch of weather, so everybody was kind of freaking out, but it all seems like it's kind of gone back to normal. So yeah, back to work on yesterday and finishing out the week like normal.
Heck yeah! So when you say back to work, what do you call what do you do for a living now?
So I work for a family company. We do home automation stuff. So home theaters, lighting, design, sound, security, basically anything that anybody wants. But we specialize in like kind of the high end, like full automation systems where instead of having like 15 apps to do all the stuff in your house, you just have one. So, we have an on-site programmer and we can kind of be as mild or wild as people want, but that's the day job.
Nice, very cool. And then, so you said you're getting everything ready to go for this weekend. Where are you headed before for a Motorama tune-up?
I'm going to Abilene, which is like 3.5 hours northwest of where I live, and they're having what's called the Brisket Bowl, which is like their first big race of the year. It's an indoor track, so we don't have to worry about it, getting rained or sleeted on. But it's gonna be cold, so that's not gonna be super awesome. But it is a good place to go, like inside, just get a quick tune up and get ready for Motorama.
Sure. And is it high bite, or is it still pretty loose dirt, or what does that look like?
It's packed in pretty tight, but it's one of the tracks that doesn't allow any sort of sauce on the premises. So kind of got to do a little bit of extra work back at the house on tires and stuff like that. And then I don't think it'll be that bad. I mean, we run open tire pretty much everywhere, so it'll be like JConcepts ellipse stuff for me personally, and then whatever corresponding stuff for the other brands.
Okay, gotcha. Very cool. Yeah. So basically, everybody who is familiar with RC Chili Bowl, at least as of this year and going back, obviously, they're going to know the name Tyler Hooks, right? So they're going to know kind of what happened this year and all of the basically the call it the ass whooping that you put down on everybody. So but so let's lead up to that. And what I want to do is go back and let's start back as far as you want to go, all the way back to your first RC car if you want to, and then let's kind of speed run the history of your RC career back to, and let's stop right before the Chili Bowl. So tell me about how you got started and what your career has looked like to this point.
So I've been an off-road racer primarily for the large majority of my career. Growing up in Texas, 8 scale off-road was always the thing. So that's what I did with my dad. Most of like my teenage years and stuff, going into high school and college. Um, had some good results here and there, like back before the race time events on the East Coast for 8 scale got so stacked. I could sneak my way into the AMains and the pro class here and there. I made the semifinals at the Nationals and 8 scale buggy back in like 2017, 2017, and then it was at my home track again this last year, so made the semifinals again. I raced a little bit of 10 scale off road here and there. It's tough to do in Texas. It doesn't really exist, but I got a stock 4-wheel drive Roar title in 2018. And that was when I was kind of running 10 scale the most in that time period. And I was fortunate enough to go to the CRCRC Midwest Champs back when it existed before they closed. And now it's what the Clash at Hoosier RC is. And made the 4-wheel main 1 year in mod. That same year, I made the Reedy Race Open main in 4-wheel. So kind of had like sporadically good results here and there. And then I worked industry jobs coming out of college basically for like 4 or 5 years. I have worked for LiveRC actually since I started college, doing all their online, all the articles you see on the website, and then some announcing at various races and stuff like that. I did a couple of Nitro challenges, Silver States, did a couple of on-road worlds, and then worked for a couple of different other companies doing like social media stuff. I worked for AKA Products, Techno RC, Tekin, and then I went to work full time for JConcepts a few years back and moved out to Florida and did the whole thing. And then my mom had some health complications in 2024, so I actually moved back here and went to work for my dad. So I still do some contract work for LiveRC and for JConcepts, but it's no longer like my main source of income.
Sure.
But yeah, so I guess
Cool.
the last part would be transitioning to oval. Like I ran the RC Pro Series here in Texas for a few years, like did the promotion and everything for it, and it was kind of a no-brainer to stop doing 10 scale off-road for that in like 2018 or 2019 and transition to oval, just because the oval scene was really like growing in our region. So I just got into it because it was like, if I'm gonna have to go to these races anyway, I might as well race. So my dad raced full-size circle track stuff and I was kind of into it. So I did the Chili Bowl back in 2021 or 22, something like that. And I made actually both made sprint car and late model, just kind of, that's not what I expected. And then didn't go back for a few years and went back in 24 and had good success. And then 25, good success. And then obviously back this year.
Right. Cool. So when you say, I just want to go back just a little bit and touch on college. So when you went to college, obviously it's something I would assume is related in tech or in the tech field somewhat.
Honestly, I just got a business degree. It was, I like, for lack of a better term, like I was a good student on paper, but I didn't love learning or anything. So it was like, hey, what's
Right.
something that I can get done in 4 years? And, if it hits the fan at any point, I have this degree that I can, this piece of paper that I can show people that like I
Right.
went and learned something. So, yeah, I just got a business degree.
Cool. Yeah. I know there's, I must say I kind of feel the same way with you there. I was more of like the check the box kind of thing and then be able to move on with life. So I get that totally.
Yeah, Dad said get it done in 4 years or like he would beat me up. I don't know. So, no.
And so you touched on he raced big cars. So what did you said big cars. So what did he run?
Asphalt late models and asphalt super late models.
Okay.
And that was my like really early childhood, was all that stuff. So this was just cool because it was like similar enough, and the dirt stuff had always been a little bit more interesting to me. And then the off-road background made it a little bit easier to kind of transition into it, and that's where we're at.
Cool. Heck yeah. So obviously, we have a lot of success to talk about pre 2026 Chili Bowl. But the one that I want to talk about is, so basically, for those who don't know, or actually, I'll let you describe it, and because I think coming from you would be much better. So tell everybody that's listening and explain from the racer's perspective when you go to the Chili Bowl, what does the invite class look like versus maybe pre-Chili Bowls? Like I think you said you went in 18. So what did these invite class Chili Bowls look like versus the previous Chili Bowls, and tell us about that.
So, I've had a couple of conversations with the guys in Invite and everything, and like when you look at it as an outsider, it's terrifying looking because it's essentially all the best guys or a large majority of the best guys in the nation. Last year was like really showcased that. This year we had a little bit lighter turnout as far as those guys go, but like most of the right people were there. Um, so from that aspect, it's really like you're trying to find who the best is, in that specific format. But outside of that, what I've tried to explain to the invite guys is it's like, look, like maybe the racing isn't always the most fun, but the invite portion of this isn't for the invite drivers. It's for everybody who's like watching and wants to see a spectacle. Like, do we want to go out there and do 12 rounds of heads up racing 30 times this year? No. Like it's it's not super super fun. It's really stressful, but it's doing it once a year and having it be a spectacle and be something that people want to tune into and be excited about. Like that part's cool. That's what made the idea behind this so cool, because the Reedy race for off road was like that, and those guys did not enjoy it. Like it was not super fun. It was a pressure cooker. But for that one time a year, it was really important to be there, and it was really important to try to do well because it meant so much to the industry and it meant so much to the manufacturers. So the idea is to try to make little tweaks to this and get it to that same place to where not only does it mean something to us, but it means something to our little part of the industry. It means something to GFRP and Custom Works, which that part's there, but it's like, how do we kind of tweak it, make it a little bit more exciting, I guess. I don't know.
Sure. Sure. No, and absolutely. And that's one thing, as somebody who hasn't went to the Chili Bowl yet, I do plan to get down there and try to run and see what I can do as an individual driver. And obviously through scale labs and whatnot, it'll be really cool to go as well. But, when you say pressure cooker and things like that, like how the Reedy race was, how do you feel as, somebody in the invite class, when you walk through those doors on load in day? I mean, is it, what goes through your mind as a racer that you know that you're there to be, you're there to perform, like you just said? So is it kind of the same, status quo, business as usual every other race, or is this like, let us into your mind a little bit on what you're thinking when you walk into the doors there every year during load-in day?
For me, like everything increases, and for me, the Chili Bowl this year was like a really good example that I needed to quit being lazy and kind of get my stuff together. Uh, I'm fortunate enough to talk a lot with like Arnie Fye and Nathan Dean and those guys, and Arnie specifically is kind of the master of like the be over prepared so that if you have to under deliver, like you can kind of get away with it. So
Mhm.
he really kind of drilled that into my head. It's like, look, have everything done and everything ready. So if things don't, the ball doesn't bounce your way, like you have every opportunity to kind of just make the most of it. Like you're not just totally screwed. So, it was, have the cars scaled every run and know what the numbers are and pay attention to them. And, then you can make changes each run and you can look at the scale numbers and see what you actually did. Have every set of tires broken in and ready to go. Have some laps on each set before you get to the race. Have the cars completely gone through. Like, do everything that you can do so that when you go to sleep at night, after practice day or after qualifying day, like you don't have to wonder if you left anything on the table. Like it was all just done. So, that's a good and bad thing because it's a lot of work. And it now has turned it into like all the next races that I want to go to. It ends up being a lot more work because these guys are too good. You can't just coast in on just talent and think that you're going to win. Like people are too good and they have their stuff figured out. And a little bit differently than off-road, like the car is a bigger percentage of the package in oval than it is in off-road. Like in off-road, if you're a very good driver, you can make up for a lot. In oval, you're going in a circle. If the car isn't going in a circle very well, you're screwed. So um, kind of like taking all the extra steps and really trying to make things as good as possible um, made that week a lot easier. And it's I want to just kind of keep down that path because it worked.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Look at the final results. I would say it worked pretty well. So, but yeah, so like when you're talking about this preparation and getting things ready to go, how long how long would you say that you're actually preparing for the chili bowl before the chili bowl? Like when does the actual chili bowl prep for you start?
For me, I was late. Um, I went and did the JConcepts race a couple weeks before and didn't do as well as I would like, and that's when I kind of had those conversations with Arnie. Um, so that was still about a month out. So I started preparing and getting stuff ready because I went and did the Mud Boss race too, and I love stock racing, but I'm one of the guys that likes to ruin stock racing. Like I'm all for spending as much money as possible to try to make the car as light and fast and on the edge as possible, which is not great
Mhm.
for stock racing, but it's for me it's fun. So it was, prepping two cars to go do that and then, having to turn around in 2 days and have the same I didn't have, extra cars, so have the same two cars to run for the chili bowl and take all the lightweight stuff out and start over. So yeah, just kind of trying to make sure that I had everything close enough to where I could get through both deals. And then um, when I talked to Dustin, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to the shootout." It's like, okay, perfect. Like that's makes it a lot easier because I could just go steal stuff from the trailer and hope he doesn't notice. So that was kind of the program. But I mean, it ended up working out. But it was having to get the tire prep stuff done a couple weeks before and kind of just fingers crossed as far as that went, hoping for the best. But I had, ideas of where I wanted my scale numbers to be and what I wanted to start with, and it was just, getting there in a reasonable setup, and then kind of hoping for the best from there.
No, yeah, absolutely. And because I think it's one of those things, and you can kind of shed some light on this when, yeah, you personally, and I'm sure a lot of the other MI guys, they're showing up with their stuff tuned up, ready to go. But I'm also I'm relatively confident saying that if you walk through the pit area, I mean, there's also guys that are at the Chili Bowl, our biggest race, the Super Bowl for Dirt Oval RC, and there's guys that are just now doing maintenance on their cars when they're getting started, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same in all forms of RC. Like it's really whatever you're there for, and there's not really a right answer to that. Like I'm there because like I like to tell people, and it's maybe not the best thing, but like I don't love driving RC cars. Like I really like competing and I like winning, and this is the thing that allows me to do that. Um, but there are dudes there that are having a way better time than I am, and they're just hanging out with the boys, like having a couple days off from work, and they get to watch some awesome RC car racing, and then they get to go if they want to go watch some awesome real racing, and the the actual racing itself is secondary, and that's totally fine.
Right.
Like there's nothing wrong with any of that. So yeah, there's definitely guys there that are on a different program, but I mean it's not a bad program. They seem like they have a great time.
Sure. No, absolutely. And so when you're talking about doing the mud boss shootout and building cars specifically with the lightweight and all that, as somebody who has done off road stuff as well, where is spec off road or spec oval? Where is it? Where is it more? Where is it crazier at? Where can you get? Where do you feel like you can get crazier at with the spend and the time and all of that?
uh, I think like loose dirt off road, like what or loose dirt oval, like what we do most of the time, rubber tire, um is pretty similar to off road, and the what you do is pretty similar too. I think where you get really crazy or really gnarly is on road or um, carpet oval. Those guys are
Mm,
pretty out of control. Um, like the stuff that they're willing to do and the money that they're willing to spend is probably like at least in the carpet oval scene is the reason why the numbers are down, because those guys are it's everybody's like me, like they're whatever I got to spend, whatever I got to do, and if I got to have 15 motors, like whatever, I'm fine. But that's not really conducive to like the normal person. um with the rubber tire stuff, you can really just get away with having a good battery, having a solid motor, and having lightweight drivetrain parts and ceramic bearings. You kind of just call it a day. um and the off-road portion, getting the car closer to weight is pretty important. So you can spend a lot of money on like titanium screws and stuff like that. But in the oval portion, like the
Mhm.
purpose built stuff, like the custom works and the GFRP cars are pretty light as it is, and things just start to not handle very well once you get them too light. Um, the conversion cars, you still can spend some money trying to get the cars lighter because they're heavy. Um, but yeah, like it's definitely not as out of control as on road or carpet oval. But yeah, I mean it's like I said, lightweight drivetrain parts are always super important. Ceramic bearings are important, and then everything just gets less important from there.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I mean, it's one of those things where I almost feel like when you go mod racing, you're building them, you're almost building them to last more than you are. You're trying to get to the end of the race because everything's going through so much, rather than on that spec side, you are building the car for speed and for lightweight and things like that. So yeah, I understand totally.
Yes, sir.
So tell me a little bit more about, so as somebody who has worked in the industry and you've made a living in the industry, um, you know, uh, talk us through that too. And where do you feel like the industry as a whole, off road, oval, everything? How do you feel like, where do you think everything is right now? How do you feel about the industry as a whole and things like that? Tell us about it.
I think that to be honest, everything's moving in a positive direction. Like you're seeing small growth year over year with like the entry counts and stuff. You're actually seeing a small growth. At least that's what I look at the numbers weekly for LiveRC, and year over year there's a small increase. It's not super radical, and some people like to say it's like, well, like every year there's more tracks that sign up for lifetime. It's like not really. You could say that 5 years ago. Now it's kind of leveled off. The tracks in North America, majority that are going to be on lifetime are pretty much already on it. There's very
Mhm.
few people that are still using Scoring Pro or Everlapse or whatever. So typically when I see an increase, it's pretty standard. Um, we have seen a lot of growth in oval. It's pretty consistently one of the top three genres of RC racing weekly. Um, Carpet on road is also seeing an increase. Those guys are, kind of having an influx of new cars and new people that are interested in it, and just people that like the idea of having something that's easy and clean to do. And Dirt Oval is kind of the same way. Like you're seeing an increase in it because it's for those guys that are a little bit more nostalgic. It brings back that ability to go outside and race and not have to be out there all day, or not be out there for 3 days for that matter. And the cars are a little bit cheaper, and the tires, for the most part, are a little bit cheaper. Um, and it's not as serious. It's I like to say that it's easy to go in a circle, but it's hard to go in a circle fast. Um, so that's where people they can kind of get themselves hooked on it because it's like, oh, I can go out and do this and be competitive, and then they try to find that last 5 or 10%. It's like, oh, wait a second, like this is tough.
Right.
Um, and then industry wise, you're seeing these companies that are it. People want to say that you see things go out of business, and it's always bad, but RC is still small enough to where some of these companies, yes, they're companies and they sell products and they do things, but they're not real companies. Like they're some of these, smaller ones are things that people are doing on the side and they kind of come and go. But your brands that are more established and are like real brands where people make a full-time living from, and they have, finance departments and people that are actually doing their taxes correctly, and like all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, like those brands seem to for the most part be doing okay. And so you're seeing a lot of, there's all these new oval cars coming out, there's new off-road cars coming out, and people are into it. Sales seem to be pretty steady. So is the RC industry crushing it? No. Is it steady, and is it seeing an uptick in my opinion? Yes. But I don't. I personally am. I'm one of the few of the guys that have their podcasts and things that want to see these crazy growth explosions in RC, and it's like we're just not ready for that. Like, um, you can't sit here and say that every track that's out there is on the up and up as far as being up to city and state code or being, ready if somebody who wants to throw a lawsuit at them is, walks in the door. Like, most of the people that go to these tracks and do these things have this kind of gentleman's agreement and understanding that, like, we're doing this because it's fun and we like it and we're not taking it that seriously. And if the cup of coffee burns us, we're not going to sue them like we would McDonald's. Like, that's kind of just where we are. And if you get these mass amounts of people that come in that aren't used to it or aren't, accustomed to it, they kind of get the Traxxas syndrome where it's like, well, it doesn't work. Well, I'm just going to call them and they'll send me a new one. And it's like that type of idea and mentality won't keep us afloat. Like, yes, it would be nice to have a whole bunch of people buying new things, but the brands wouldn't be able to keep up with the large influx of new people, and then they would struggle to keep up. And then by that time, those people would all be gone because they couldn't get what they wanted. So when you see these small incremental increases in like the industry kind of growing in this slow gradual process, it's one of these things where these brands can actually scale along with the growth, and they can actually be prepared to make another 25 kits a year instead of trying to make 200 kits and then those people are gone and then they can't sell them. So I'm happy with what I see, but I know that that's not what everybody wants to hear, so I try to explain it.
Sure. This is so another question that just kind of popped in my head as you were talking is, so somebody who has spent a lot of time obviously over in the off-road side of things, now you're kind of sharing your time back and forth and doing a lot of oval racing now too. When we look at off-road, we have Associated, X-Ray, Techno, I'm sure I'm missing several, Kyosho, and just keep going down the line. And when we look at oval, we have GFRP and we have Custom Works. Now I know you're a GFRP guy. Dustin's a friend of the show and all that as well. But what is it? What is your opinion on? Is that healthy for our side of the sport or our side of the hobby? Do you think there should be more players? Obviously, there's velocity too, and I know you come from velocity cars before you were a team guy, but that is a little bit different. It is, but it isn't, I guess, situation. So, what is your opinion on that, and what do you think about that for the health of our side of the hobby?
I think it's fine right now. I think that like if you look at like what you would call like the brand wars of 10 scale off road in the 90s, where it was associated in Losi majority of the time. That's kind of where it was. Like there was Yokomo stuff trickled in that, the associated guys would run like Yokomo four wheels, and there was, Kyosho that was around kind of in that time period. And then as the that leg of the industry gained more footing, then you had more brands that kind of stepped in, and it wasn't a detriment to everybody else. It just kind of added to the pie. And I think that what we're seeing with this growth in oval allows the idea of somebody like Velocity actually doing their own full car and everything be something that can be added to the industry and it not be a detriment to Custom Works and GFRP. Sometimes that competition actually breeds everybody becoming better. And I think that there's enough market share right now that you're not going to see Custom Works or GFRP close their doors because of Velocity, gets a full car running or whatever. So I think it's fine. I think competition's good within reason. Now, if we had 7 brands that popped up next year and all had cars and were ready to go, it's probably bad. Like then it's bad news bears. But I think that we are in a healthy enough spot where we could support, 1, 2, or 3 more of the brands that had full cars, or even just one that has a full car, and then you still have the 3 or 4 guys that are making chassis conversions and stuff like that that people are kind of into. So I think it's fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and like I said, it's just because it feels like off road, and I don't know the numbers, and you would be a great person to be able to shed some light on that. But how much bigger, in your opinion or in your exact knowledge, because I'm sure like how much bigger is off road than oval?
I mean, 10 scale off road is bigger, period. But it's bigger than everything, period. In the winter, dirt oval actually picks up more than 8 scale off road. which kind of makes sense because you can race inside. But
Right.
during the summer, then 8 scale off road picks back up, kind of takes that back over. The 8 scale off road stuff is a lot more of, it's kind of a spectacle, and as far as the big races go, it's a lot more of those people that want to go have a good time with the buddies, take the travel trailer out there, do the whole 9 yards. It's a lot more people that are like that, that are, comfortable spending more money to do that type of thing. Um, the dirt oval kind of fills in the gaps where you do see a lot of people that are into it because they were into the big racing, or they're into it because it's cheaper and easier to maintain and you don't have to be there as long. Like that's what's enticing to me. Like the race tomorrow's, essentially what would be a 2 or a 3 day off-road race here in Texas. Well, we're going to start on Saturday and we're going to finish on Saturday, and I can drive home on Sunday. Like I'm good. I don't have to practice on Friday. I don't have to race on Saturday. I don't have to be there on Sunday. Like I'm way more into that. So for somebody like me, it fills in that box of, we're here for a certain amount of time and then we're gone. But there's a lot of guys that they want to, like I said, take the travel trailer out, take the wife out and the kids, and bring the dog and race their 8 scale off-road buggy for 3 days. And I'm down to do that, but I got to prepare for it and like be mentally ready to be in it. So it's
Right.
just, they're two different people doing two different things.
Right. And I guess you really don't, now that you say that, you really don't see a huge crossover of like 8 scale guys to oval. Like I don't know a lot of 8 scale guys that run oval, but I do know a lot of 10 scale off road guys that dabble in oval quite a bit. But I guess that's a natural transition too, as well.
Yeah.
If you go from 10 scale to 10 scale, where the 8 scale side, there really is no 8 scale presence in oval. So that makes a lot of sense. Cool. So getting off of that and getting off kind of the industry, I want to talk about you as a driver a little bit more, and pump you up a little bit here. So let's team GFRP driver. Before that, you were with Team Velocity. JConcepts team driver, and then Hobbywing team driver, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then AMain / Protek. That's all I know. That's kind of all under the same banner. And then on the off-road side, I believe you're a team driver for RC America X-Ray as well.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So tell us about that process, right? So is that something when you're obviously, you've shown results in all facets of RC for the majority of your career. Is that something that you're constantly searching for? You're always trying to find the right fit. You want to be with the right company. Is it, I just want, kind of the best deal I can get. What does that look like for you? Without kind of, I don't want to throw you under the bus and make you admit that you're just chasing. I'm sure you're not, but if you are just chasing it, sweeten it up a little bit, obviously. But
Right.
tell us about being a team driver. Obviously, it is more what I'm getting at, and what does that look like? And is there stresses there? Is there not? What does that look like for the average guy to go to being a team driver?
Most of my deals are structured in a way to where like everybody kind of leaves me alone unless I ask for something, which is the way that I want it. Doing enough of the industry stuff that I did and that I still do, and kind of being tied in still, it has allowed me some flexibility to kind of do what I want when I want to. So, like for JConcepts, for example, they don't ever tell me I need to go do anything or ask me to be anywhere. I just am like, hey, I'm going to be here, and can you guys help or whatever? And typically they say yes. Um, and most of the other brands are like that too. Like the AMain deal and stuff like that was pretty similar. It was, whatever you want to race, we'll just figure it out. Whatever you need to do, or um, whatever's going on. Like their thing is, hey, like we probably sponsor the race you're going to anyway, so you might as well, it doesn't hurt for you to be there and to be running the products and stuff. So a lot of the deals are kind of structured that way. Just it's pretty easy. I try not to ask for too much or need too much, because especially on the off road side, like for 8 scale stuff, if it's a Texas race, I feel like I can be in contention to win or be on the podium. But if it's like a nationals, or I plan on doing the worlds later this year, it's like we're just there for the vibes. So, um, but the oval stuff, I do feel like the goal is to win. And that that obviously means something to somebody like GFRP. So the conversation with Dustin was like, hey, I could potentially do some work for them, and do some things here and there. But beyond that, it's like, hey, just go to the track and try to win. Like that's what we're here for. So,
Sure.
what I had this conversation with somebody at Hobbywing recently, where they were talking about their team and stuff opening up, and it was opening late, and they had all these people reaching out, and it just seemed like this big deal where all these people wanted things, and it was stressful, right? And I've done some team management stuff for Techno and AKA and even JConcepts over the years. And what I tried to tell the guy, just like as a way to get him to relax, is it's like, look, like stop looking at all these people reaching out as, they want something from me. Like, what do I do? It's like, start looking at it the other way. For your 50% drivers or your entry level sponsorships, it's like, hey guys, what can you do for brand A? Like, are you going to sell motors next year? Like, are you going to make a dent in the market where you live? Are people actually going to swap brands or change products or do this or do that because you're doing it? Or are you just here because you want your 30 or 50% deal, and I'm never going to hear from you again, and I'm not even going to know that you exist other than when your orders come in? Because like I understand that, like, you're getting a discount and that's what you get, but like, what do I get? And if the person's answer is, well, I don't know, like if they don't have an answer for you or they can't quantify it or they can't even lie to you, then there's no point. Like, what are we even doing? So, um, I've had moments in my career where I could pinpoint that, like, look, I sold this product. This guy walked over the trailer. I watched him buy it right after he talked to me. Like, I, these are these things that I can quantifiably say, like, I made a dent. Um, and, in my situation, like with the Chili Bowl wins and stuff like that, there are a lot of people that reach out, they want to know different things. And it's my job to be forthcoming with the information and not gatekeep the stuff that I learned or that I know, and to try to, sell the products for the brands that support me. But um, a lot of people don't think about it like that. It's like, it's just what can you do for me? It's like, well, I can give you a coupon code and I don't know, I hope you do something with it. But like, if you really want a good sponsorship with a brand that actually matters and you want to feel like they care about you, it's like, well, then do something for them. Sell some product, like try the product out yourself for full price. Like, I've done that plenty of times. If I think it's good, then I'm going to buy it. Um, but I think that's the stigma, is it's like, instead of what can this company do for me, it's like, what can I do for this company? And then in turn, hopefully I get something out of it. So there needs to be a little bit of a shift in that for the
Right.
normal person.
And
But yeah,
go ahead.
go
Sorry, I
ahead.
cut you off.
No, that was it. I think my brain shut off.
Sorry. Yeah. But so I understand totally where what you're saying there, and that makes so much sense, because now that you bring that up, like I have seen so many people that are on deals or team guys or whatever, that that the only time you ever hear about what car they run or what they're doing or whatever is when they're placing an order or this, that, or the other. And I think about it again exactly like you just described. Obviously I'm going about the hobby and how I'm doing it in a little bit of a different way through the social media and trying to post content and help people and through this podcast and whatnot. So, but I think about that all the time. We're only 3 episodes in. I've got a long way to go before this is going to be. I'm going to have sponsors on this channel, but I want to, with Scale Labs. I would love to have sponsors and help me. Pay for monthly subscriptions for all the software I've got to have and microphones and computers and all that good stuff. But I want, just the sake of round numbers, if somebody's going to give me $500 to be a sponsor on this stream, I want to make sure that, okay, they, in my mind, they need to make $1,000 because they're on this stream. I need to be able to sell or relocate product for them. I need to do $1,000 in value for them to give me 500. And I think a lot of racers should also look at things like that. And that's how we grow the hobby. That's how we're growing businesses. We grow the hobby and as a whole. Is it's not what you can do for me, But I think if a lot of people approach deals and things like that of what I can do for you, this would just, it would explode even more. It would go crazy.
Yeah, and I think having that thought process is good. I think that you're probably like a little like high on what you need to offer, just because like the flip side of that is, as the brands think about it, it's like, hey, to a certain degree, the sponsorship thing is a loss leader. That they're not making money off of the sponsorships, but their idea is that if you get the right amount of guys in the right situation where they're influencing the right amount of people, then that loss that you have is made up on the back end. So it's like you probably personally don't need to make them $1,000 for the $500 that they spend, but if you can show them that they're not going to lose any money, and then they're going to gain, um, this social media reach and these extra people and blah blah blah. It's like, hey, I
Right.
spent $500, but I'm not just watching it, get flushed down the drain. This guy has this quantifiable amount of reach and these people that see it every month and this following and a clickable link and this and that and the other. Then it's like, oh well, okay, maybe I lost $150, but that was, $350 worth of advertising that I didn't have to do. So,
Right.
um, and that's the thing too. It's like, because what I'm saying is like, well, how are you going to sell product? Well, it's the normal guy's not going to be able to be like, well, I can sell 15 motors this month. Like, it's not how it works. But if you can, show the sponsors like, look, like, these are the amount of posts I do every month. This is the amount of following that I have. These are the races I'm going to go to. I'm doing this, that, and the other. At least you have like a plan. That's better
Right.
than the large majority. And like you're saying, it's like, look, I have this thing I need to pay for, this thing I need to do, and this thing that's going to happen. But like, here's the overlays that I can have with your graphics on them. Here's the things I plan on having. Here's the guests I plan on, having on the show. And these are the numbers that I've had for my first, whatever podcast. And these are all things that you can like incrementally show them. So like, as far as you're concerned, like you're already on the way. Like all this stuff is, you're laying the groundwork for that type of thing. But for the normal everyday RC racer, it's like it's thinking about it like that. It's like, I want to have a sponsor. Okay, well, what can I show them aside from a resume that's just some words I made up or put in ChatGPT that whatever. Like, you know, these are the people that I see every day, or I feel like I can influence, and this is the region that I'm in and the races I'm going to and all this and blah blah blah. But it's all like a trickle down effect. Like in off road, I used to try to explain it that it's like, a guy like Dakota Finn gets paid because he then influences a certain amount of people. Now, does Dakota Finn always influence the guy that's going out to his local track on a Saturday to play with his 8-scale nitro buggy because it's fun? Probably not. But the people that Dakota is directly influencing are like the 75% guys that are in the region that run for that same brand. Like they want to know what he's doing because it's important to them. Well, then those 75% drivers go back to their home track and they influence the 50% drivers that are in their little area. And those people are, typically at least know what's going on with that guy. And then those 50% drivers ideally influence your end consumer in their own little area. So yes, there you do have some of that Dakota Finn influencing the end consumer, but that's why you end up having all these levels, because it's like Dakota really does influence the guys below him and they really do influence the guys below them, and then they get to the end consumer, and that's where like that whole train kind of stays on the track. So those 50% guys are important and the 75% guys are important and the paid guys are important, but they're all important within the whole machine. So that's why I think that these brands can kind of justify having a loss, because you kind of saw it with, I'm going off on a tangent, but you kind of saw it with Horizon Hobbies, and like, they got rid of a large majority of their paid teams for Proline and AKA, and got rid of a lot of the team for TLR, and then lowered a lot of people's percentages, and then all of a sudden like nobody's running the stuff, or they're having a hard time keeping people, or keeping in consumers, and their whole percentage pie of the market just shrunk. So it's like, hey, maybe we don't need to spend $50,000 a year on sponsorship, but there is something to having guys at all these levels and justifying, paying them or giving them free product or giving them discounted product, because it does do something. Like, there is something here. So I think that it's all about just being able to justify your worth as a driver and then going from there. It either is going to work out or it's not. You can move on to the next one. But, having a plan, I think, is important.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think you just described it perfectly, where, your Dakota Finns, your Spencer Rivkins, those guys on the off-road side, they're not top of funnel. They are the funnel. And then
Correct. Yeah.
that's what you can take those guys and pour it in. And then it's basically whatever's coming out of the bottom of the funnel is what the businesses and the brands are getting, essentially. So that makes sense.
Right.
And so something else, this is really interesting because I didn't anticipate this conversation going this way. So I'm loving how that we're getting industry specific, but I feel like we do have on the off-road side of things, there is so many, what I would consider, there are names, like there are basic people in the RC hobby that, that they only race a couple times a month or once a month or whatever. They can look at a screen or look at their phone and they can know who a Spencer Rivkin is, a Dakota Finn is, go down the list, all kinds of people. Oval, I don't feel like Oval has that. And it has that name, that pop factor. And I feel like it is so much more important to be a brand inside of Oval than it is where it's more personality based, it feels like, on off-roads. Is that accurate, do you think? Or what's your opinion on that? Where do you think we are with the two different sides of the hobby?
I think there's a couple different things going on. I think that in off-road, there's money being paid to a lot of these drivers. So with that, typically comes stipulations. So like if you're a driver that's getting paid, it's like, hey, you got to do a video every month, or you have to post this many times a month, or do this or that. And in Oval, it's like nobody's getting paid, and I don't think anybody should at this point. But with that, it's harder to put these stipulations in a contract, because it's like, look, like, I understand that I'm getting this and this for free, or this and this for a discount, but I still have a day job and I got to do 100 other things. So maybe these guys to that effect aren't going to put themselves out there because they don't really see the reasoning, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, like, what can you do for the brand? But they're doing what everybody else is doing. Nobody's going out of their way to do that, really. So it's not super crucial. And the person right now who is going out of his way to do all of that stuff is the guy that owns one of the brands and is able to profit from it. Like, Dustin actually does a really good job of getting online and talking to all of us and trying to wrangle us in when we're going crazy in his little chat rooms and stuff. But it directly affects his livelihood, and so I guess that would kind of be the parallel. It's like, who's getting paid to do this? Well, Dustin is. So Dustin's going out of his way to do the extra work that you're seeing in off-road, because those guys are getting paid to do it. So, but beyond that, I think that there's a little bit more of a gatekeeper mentality as far as like setups and information goes in Oval, because the car is so important. And guys are a little bit more guarded with information and how open they are in Oval, because it's hard. Like, it's hard to have your stuff on point all the time, and all that information that you share makes it easier for everybody else. So there's things that you can tell people when they ask, but you don't have to tell them everything. But it's like, there are things that we could share and do videos like this and stuff like that. That's not going to hurt. It's not going to make it any harder for me to win or podium at Motorama because of anything we've talked about. So
Right.
I think there is a little bit of that, and just there's more people and more personalities in off-road, and as this grows, I think you'll kind of see it transition in that direction, but we are just smaller. So there's that too.
Yeah. Right. And that's, that's the big thing with is the size, because there are so many things. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at any. I go live every Wednesday, so I don't know if you had a chance to pop in any of those and check it out or not. But last night we were talking about things, and I've been doing this now. Scale Labs has been doing this for like 60 days basically, and we've accumulated just over 150,000 unique views as far as like reach.
Right.
Which I thought but I also don't have a gauge, right? Like I thought that was killer, and I think that's fantastic. But in the same breath, if I, does X, Y, and Z company on the off-road side or whatever, do they do that in a day? I don't know what that looks like, but that reach does seem to be important, and it does seem like there's more and more people, at least on my end, from what I'm seeing. It's like people are starting to come out of the woodwork of like, it's like we turn the light on and now all the flies are flying around in the best way
Right.
possible. I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but it's like, as we keep going and as we keep doing things, we just need more people to turn the light on so all the flies can start flying around. And that's a terrible expression because I'm calling people flies. I mean that as a good thing, but we just, I didn't, and that's why we're here. That's why we're doing what we're doing right now. I didn't personally see Oval have that side of things. I mean, Dustin's Monday Minute or Malakote Minute or whatever was kind of the best thing that we had as an Oval, for when we got started. And now it's, Dustin's on 3 or 4 times a week live, and it's great. And we're doing this and this, that, and the other. So I think it's super important, but I don't know. I think I find myself somewhat lost in what we're, as a whole, what we're moving towards at times, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that I get what you're saying, and like what they're doing over there is kind of trying to move towards, what quote unquote the future is. But it's like and I talked to them a little bit before I joined the team, and we were talking about like what things that can do to make GFRP better, make the industry better. And it's like, guys, social media is free. Like, you're spending money because you're going out of your way to do this, that, and the other. But like, his Malakote Minute doesn't cost him any money.
Right.
But taking out an advertisement in a magazine like he would have done in 2008, that would have cost money. And G or whoever back at the shop taking some extra time to show how to put together a cage or this, that, and the other, and throwing it up on Facebook, that doesn't cost any money. It costs a little bit of time and labor for what she's got going on and the million other things that she's doing. But as far as an advertising budget goes, it's free. So
Right.
I think anytime that these brands have the capabilities, somebody's got a camera or an iPhone like everybody does, and you're not putting stuff out there, at least just on Facebook or doing a Facebook Live or this, that, or whatever, you're just missing out. Like, that's where everything's going. And especially when, it doesn't cost you anything. So, um, like I said, we're still seeing growth in this portion of the industry. So there is a direction, like things are growing and moving forward. But yeah, to your point, it definitely doesn't hurt for, the top level racers and stuff to be more transparent and be out there more. But um, I don't know if that's on us or if that's on the manufacturers to tell us to do that or what. I don't know what the answer is to that, but that is probably conversation that needs to be had here in the future, just for the sake of growing the whole segment.
Right. And before I say this, I know I'm the odd man out with this attitude, but and let me disclaim by saying I know for a fact, I know I'm not even remotely a fast guy, let alone a good guy in the hobby. Like I'm doing, when I go and race, I'm doing it for fun. I'm not going to win. I think I can win, and then I get humbled very quickly after about my second lap of practice. Um, but no, like when I help somebody or somebody needs help, right? Whatever that, if that is me handing them my car and say, here, my car is great today, copy it, copy this setup. If they're way off or whatever it is, I get more enjoyment and more satisfaction when that person blows past me and I get beat by that person, because I like, to me, if I get beat, if I get run second to that person, like I was a part of that person's success today. I was a part of that person doing better than they would have if I wasn't a part of what they were doing. And I think that gets lost, especially on our side, on the oval side of things, where everybody is. I've noticed how cliquey kind of some of us can be, and then how groupy we can be in groups, as well as, like the perfect word that you said was gatekeeping. People will give you just enough for almost for you to get yourself in trouble, and people will help. And I know that people are always saying people will help and this, that, and the other, but I do see that that help has a limit. And I just don't know that is that what's stopping us from going to the next level. When I say us, I mean the segment as a whole. is that what's stopping us? Is instead of us all elevating and getting better, because essentially if you help somebody and get beat by them, then to me that is okay, I got to get better now. I have to I have a good car because they just beat me with my car, but now I have to be a better driver, me personally. And I think, are people just staying stagnant where they are as drivers or as setup guys or whatever, and then it doesn't go, we're always just hitting our head on the ceiling, where we need people to come through and knock a hole through the ceiling so that we can all go up through and then find our next ceiling, is my opinion on it. And maybe I'm totally wrong, and maybe I'm off base and I'm the only person that feels that way, but that's my opinion on it, about where we're at and what could happen or what could help maybe.
So I think that does happen sometimes, and Dustin actually talked about this in his video that he did on Sunday or whatever, and
Mhm.
and I tend to agree with him, and maybe it's not the right thing, but it's what's worked best for me. Um, you're right to a certain degree. Like, there are people that won't tell you everything. But the flip side of that I've seen in a lot of situations is, if you don't ask the question, there's a lot of guys, and myself included, Dustin included, that aren't going to give you the answer because, 4 or 5 times you go out of your way to tell this guy that this doesn't look right, he should try this. And they either do the opposite or they blow you off. It's like, all right, well, cool. It's way easier for me to just not do it at all then.
Yep.
But if somebody
Yep.
wants to come ask the question, then I have no problem answering. But, you do it enough times where the people get frustrated with you, or they don't listen, or whatever. Or, even worse than that, they'll go tell somebody else that whatever you told them doesn't work. It's like, all right, cool, man. Like, problem solved. We just won't do this again. Um, so I
Right.
think that you actually see that a lot too, where people will kind of come up and look at stuff, but they won't ask questions. And it's like, they want something, or they're looking for something, but it's like, dude, just ask. Like, I'm gonna answer you. And yeah, there are guys out there that won't, but the large majority of these guys, it's like they have been burned a couple times, and they don't really want to again because it kind of ruins your day. So just ask. They'll probably tell you the
Right.
answer, but if you don't ask, then you're never going to know. Like, that was my
Yep.
getting into the oval thing and living near Nathan and Arnie. It was like, I'm just going to ask these guys questions until they stop answering me. Like, we'll see. Maybe they will never stop answering me. And so far, fortunately for me, they've never stopped answering the questions. But like, that was the thought process, is those guys are way faster than I am. So I'm going to keep asking, and I'm going to keep doing what they tell me to do. Cause, if they're going to tell me, I'm going to try it. If they told me it needed purple polka dots on it to go faster, like, I'm going to put purple polka dots on it. And if it doesn't go faster, it doesn't. But like, I can go back to them and tell them, like, look, I did the thing.
Right.
And I think that there's a certain part of that where some people get intimidated, or they think that people won't answer this, whatever, and then they don't ask. But it's like, you're never going to get the answer if you don't. So yes, I know that some people want to be approached and they want to be helped and stuff like that, but that's a tough one because so many times it just doesn't work.
Right. I mean, you have to put you have to be the person that passes the ball. You can't ever expect somebody, you can't ever expect to be holding the ball and somebody comes up to you and takes the ball out of your hand, because then
Yeah,
that's a great way to get yelled at or whatever.
get hit.
And I want to preface, but everybody rolling their eyes at me for what I just said previous. In no way, shape, or form do I think in any way that everybody should be giving everybody everything. People work way too hard on setups and spend way too much time and way too much energy, effort for what they're getting back. That I do not think everybody should be giving all of their proprietary information to everybody all the time.
But
I
in
just
your
mean
defense, it happens. Like, that does happen. It's definitely a thing. But like, the best way to combat that is to ask.
right. Yeah, 100%. And it's because in the same breath of everything we were just talking about, I don't know that I have never asked a single person a question and somebody told me to get lost. Like, that has
Right.
never
Yeah.
happened, not one
Yeah,
time in my
exactly.
life.
Yeah.
And and I made the huge mistake, and this is something that we talked about in previous episodes, like when we're going live and stuff, because it was really a perfect time to start all this, because I was just getting kind of back in. I've been around the hobby a lot of my life, but I was getting back into the hobby in a back into the mod side of things and stuff. And I was making huge mistakes as a person, not even a racer, but as a person. Like I was the pit area, the pit area pimp or whatever you want to call me, like trying to be somewhat PG-13. Like I would go to anybody that would talk to me and ask questions. And I had 18 different people's setups on the car and couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting it. Like I went about it completely the wrong way. And I've been trying to be an advocate of exactly to a T what you just said with Nathan and Arnie. Like you have a core group of guys that you go to. Those are your dudes. Everybody else can 100%, when you have a question or you want to know an answer or whatever, you can go and get input from somebody. But realistically, that kind of final say is going to be ran through, like, we'll just keep Nathan as the example.
Right.
I mean, having that group is so incredibly important, and I completely debauchered that whole thing to the point where I was on pace to, like, where nobody was going to talk to me, period. Not because I was being a jerk or because but I people were actually, I actually had a couple buddies that I made, and they sat me down and talked to me, and that's kind of how I got through it all. But I would go from one guy, get all of that information, and literally before I would get back to my car to sit down and actually work on it, I had asked 2 or 3 other people.
Yeah.
And gotten 3 radically different pieces of information. And then I tried to divulge it and get it, like, go to an average, and it just doesn't work. Like even at minimum, if you go just on a race day, try to have somebody, let alone a whole program. I personally think you should have your people for your entire program, and you guys all work together, and that's who you're working with. But at minimum, I think people should have your guy on race day.
Right.
And then figure it out on a week-to-week basis, I guess. But I 100% agree with what you're saying, and I can speak to that 100% through my own doings, because I just about, I think, had a pretty bad name in the hobby if I would have kept going the way I was going. So I respect and understand what you're saying 100%.
Yeah, I mean everything's fixable, so it's not one of those things to worry about. But yeah, like there's a lot of opinions. They're like assholes. So everybody's gonna have one, and yeah, it's really easy to get yourself spun out, like trying to follow too many people doing too many different things. And yeah, it sounds like obviously clearly you're figuring out. It's like you said, like your core group of people, your core group of opinions, and then just trying to build your little repertoire of these are the setup changes I make for this thing that happens, and trying to limit what you do to yourself so that you don't just end up all over the place.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Tyler, we've been going for an hour. It feels like about 10 minutes, but I want to talk about I keep trying to lead in and talk about your success at the Chili Bowl, and then we get on a tangent, and I loved it. I didn't, like I said before, I did not expect the conversation to go this way. So it's been unbelievably refreshing. But let's talk about the 2026 Chili Bowl, get through a couple more questions after that, and get you out of here, because I don't want to take any more time than I have to. Invitational class, late model. You guys ran 6 heats of late model, 6 heats of sprint car. You go 1-1, 3, 1-1-1, and they take your best 5. You get a drop. So you have a perfect score in late model. How does that feel? What does the day look like? What's going on?
So that wasn't the goal. The goal was, like, we looked at the numbers last year and divided by the amount of runs or whatever, and Nathan won with it was like a 2.3 or 2.8 average or whatever. So the goal was to try to keep it at 2 or under 2 as an average. So you kind of have to just take what you can get, and try to make calculated decisions, kind of going after what you've got. And obviously I knew I had a good late model. And so the first 2 runs were good, and then the third one I knew was going to be really tough. So it was, I can spin out trying to get, second or first, or I can take a third and I can end the first day, in a good spot. And then the second day of late model with all 3 of the wins, things just happened correctly. I kept on my little game plan of trying to keep the average at what it was at, and not take any high risk, decisions, because the further I got through it, the more it was like I just need to get all the way to the 6th run without having a throwout, and then I'm already kind of automatically in a better spot than everybody else. So then I can, if I want to let it hang, quote unquote, in the 6th run, then I can. And we got there and kind of got through it all. And I don't remember a whole lot of it. I don't remember a whole lot of my races after they're over, but yeah, it went pretty positively. And then I guess moving into sprint car, I wasn't as confident. I made a decision after practice to run like just not a setup that looking back that I would have done, but I was already pretty committed. Um, and I had a car that, for lack of a better term, I could go. We did 40 laps times 6 races, so 6, 12, 240 laps. I think I went 200 without spinning out. And it was like, all right, well, that's got to be good enough for something, right? Like we can go 5 rounds and not fly off the track unless I run into somebody, which I decided to run into Wesley and fly off the track. So that was my bad. But that was what I felt like once we got to that portion of the race. And I had a little bit of a cushion, I felt like that was going to be good enough. So, and it, it kind of was. And then we actually like tried to make the car really fast for the last race just to see if I could do something cool. And then I immediately flew off the track and spun out. So the Chili Bowl was over after the 5th out of 6 sprint car run, but I was trying. It looked bad, but we just didn't do it right. But yeah, it was
Right.
just kind of law of averages and trying to stay level headed, not do anything stupid.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, after looking through at LiveRC and checking out everything and looking at all the points, if it looks like I'm looking over you right now, I have a big monitor behind me that has all my
You're
notes and
good.
stuff. But um, the biggest thing that stood out to me was obviously you're consistent. Late model again, you went 113, 111. Sprint car, you went 222, 12, and then 6. Obviously, that last one was your throwout in sprint car. So you had a total of 14 points to win your a world championship. Now you're world champion. But if you look at second on back, the entirety of the field is within like 1 or 2 points. All the way down, and then it starts staggering down. Where you are 6 points, you had 14 total. Second place ended up with 20. The gap and like the domination that you showed, is that I know it's hard to talk about yourself, and I get that, and I know you're a humble guy and all and everything, but is that you were clicked on that weekend and you're a badass, or you're knowing how to how to play the averages where everybody else didn't, or you got it was luck and skill? What just That's not normal to have that kind of gap. So where does that come from, do you think?
I mean, I'd like to say that it's all like I had it all planned out, but clearly I
Right.
didn't. But what I will say is that I've had a lot of I was working for LiveRC and covering and doing like kind of round by round coverage and posts and stuff about the Reedy race when it used to happen. For them. So I was pretty tuned into like kind of how the race worked and you could call it the sports psychology behind it. But basically, like I knew how it went last year, and I knew that, last year I got third and I was, in it until the final day. And that's a big task, like to, even if you're not winning, but if you're close, to stay like mentally in the event, even all the way to day 6 or whatever it is, because it's really easy to just say screw it, like I'm good, like I'm not gonna do everything, I'm not gonna check every set of tires and be on top of it and do all that, because it's this is a lot and I'm over it. um so after the first day went as well as it did, going into the second day, it was like I really want to try to end late model with the least amount of points I possibly can, because I think that this is going to sound terrible, but I think that a certain amount of people are going to give up. You know what I mean? Like they're going to get to the end of
Mhm.
late model and be like, this didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And I don't even think I can claw my way out of it. And then they race differently. You know what I mean? Like the decisions
Right.
that they make and the choices and the gaps they go for and the passes they try to do and everything changes. So Do I actually know if any of the guys changed what they were doing, or if how into it they were? I have no idea. That's for them to talk about and decide. But it was like, if I can put these guys in a situation where they're not into it anymore, then I can make this easier on myself. But the flip side of that is you have to have a really good car. You have to kind of have everything clicking the right way. And I don't know if I can, put myself in a position like that again. It just happened to work out. Like, I'd love to go to
Right.
Motorama and just dominate everybody, but I don't think it's going to happen. So we'll
Right.
see.
I love that you just professionally, and I love the fact that you just politely and professionally said, I knocked them on their ass, and then I'm going to put my foot on their throat. And
Yeah.
that's what that was badass how you just described that. So yeah, no, that's cool, man. That's that. And I don't think there's a lot of people out there that's sitting at their pit having the week that you're having there and thinking about the psychology of other racers. And that was that we're going to clip that, because that's going to be a badass clip to post, because that's cool. Because I don't think, I think out of all of the, and I'm another firm believer that I truly believe this is sport. I don't think this is a hobby, and there's not a lot of us getting rich off this, but I view this as a sport. However silly, it's grown men playing with toy cars, but I view it as sport. And I don't think there's a lot of people that consider the mentals that go into this. I think everybody's focused on having the perfect car and making sure their car is good and maintenance and all that, but there's very few people giving a quality thought into the mentals of their competitors. And so that was cool to hear from you.
I think that the flip side of that is, I think that there are some there, and I'm not talking about yours, but I think that there are some podcasts out there in the off-road side that love to like way overthink the mental thing. Like, they'll talk about guys having strategy during qualifying and this and that, and it's like, guys, everybody's just trying to go the fastest they can, especially in qualifying. Like, we're just trying to go around the track fast. So I think that you can overdo it, but I had guys in Invite congratulating me on the third day, like the first day of sprint car, on, winning the Chili Bowl, quote unquote. And it was like, I kept telling them, I'm like, no, like, I'm not there yet. As soon as you stop, you pull the intensity back and you kind of like rest a little bit, that's when you have a bad round. And then when you have a bad round, well, now you no longer have a throwout for the rest of the event. Like, you have to be locked in. So that was where it was like, I need to stay present and I need to stay, interested in winning this thing, because if I can get all the way to the sixth round and I don't need a throwout, then I can relax. And that's kind of inevitably what happened. But it happened like that in the best way possible. But it really was just like, I don't want to let go of what I've been doing until it's like the trophy's in my hand, and then we can calm down. But I just wasn't willing to go down that road of like, taking people's congratulations or accepting like how they felt about it until it was over.
Right. So when did you, so obviously day 3 you have guys, you finished up sprint car, then you ran, then it was late model, right? So
Vice versa, but yeah.
or yeah, so you just finished up. So when did it sink in? I mean, or is this after the very last heat, or after everything? Did it sink in then? Has it not even sank in yet? I mean, where was like, okay, I'm here, we did it.
After the fifth one, that was when it kind of hit, because nobody really announced anything. Scotty wanted to have the spectacle of doing the final round and kind of crowning it that way. So it was understood. Like, we knew what the math was. We knew that there wasn't a way for anybody to beat it. So I could be done then, but we needed to kind of keep it on the down low, let it actually be a moment, because that was cool for me too. Being able to high five all the guys, and then come off the track and kind of like talk to everybody and kind of bask in that was neat.
Sure.
As far as like, I don't know, having it settle in or whatever, like, it's, for me, it's back to wanting to compete and just win the next one and then the next one. And it would be really cool if I could look back, in a few years and have, one of these runs that like a guy like Max has had in the past, where he wins like everything in one year. Like, that would be really neat. Like, I would be I would be pretty proud of that. Um, I really like that those type of time periods where these guys are just unbeatable. I think that's like, that's a guy that did something really cool and really kind of controlled an era. And you saw that in the off-road side with the Cavallari and Mayfield and Jared Tebow and the whole 10-year span of the one of the three of them won everything. Um, and then you had Ty Tessman and Dakota Finn, that it was the same thing. One of those two guys won everything for a 3 or 4 year span. So um, I would love to make it something that I could repeat. And I don't know if I'm proving it to myself or proving it to anybody else. I have no idea. But yeah, to just be able to have a dominant run or to have a couple of good years would be pretty cool.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if anybody's going to do it, you're on your way for sure. So
Definitely gonna
that's cool,
try.
man. Absolutely. Well, dude, so we've got 3 more questions, and then I've got a couple special guest questions that came in here right at the last second before we hit record. But so 3 questions that I ask every person, and we'll always ask every person at the end of all of our podcasts. What is one tech tip or piece of knowledge that you feel every racer should know?
Um, well, now after that last weekend, you got to know how to use your scales. Well, you need to have scales, and then you need to know how to use them. Um, if anything, just to know what your baseline is, it's going to make your life way easier. You find a setup that you like, well, then scale it, check it, and then over time, you kind of learn what the numbers mean and which direction you want to go. Um, so that would be my tip. And then the next is just make it, and it goes along those lines, but make it to where every run, everything's repeatable. You're not going out there and stuff's falling off your car, or you don't know what your droop is or your ride height is or this or that. Like, you just know everything, because then it's so much easier to actually make setup changes and really know what the setup change did. It's like, well, I added, 4 millimeters of droop to the rear of my car, but I didn't change anything else. And it's like, okay, well, you changed the ride height, you changed the cross weight, you changed the rake, you changed all these things, but all you think you did was change droop. It's like, well, that's not how that works. Like, so really understanding what things do in relation to the other things is pretty important.
Sure. And so that begs the question then, how do you handle a race day? Let's take the Chili Bowl out of it, because it's obviously a big special event. Same thing with Motorama, things like that. But just on your average day, how are you documenting, and like, are you, every single change that you make throughout the day from first practice till the end of the AMain, are you writing that down, or is it all mental note and then you write it down at the end of the day? What does that look like for you?
I don't write anything down. I should, but everything for me at this point is mostly a mental note. Like, the scaling stuff was new for me, so I did either screenshot all of that or kind of write it down on my pit board. But the rest of it is just, I kind of have a rough understanding of what a large majority of the things that you can do on a independent suspension car, like two-wheel drive, off-road wise, and most of it relates. So, um, yeah, it's just, I should write it down, like you said, but I don't.
Yeah. I have a little shameless plug on Scale Labs. I am a very extreme note taker. So every time I do anything, I keep a log basically throughout the whole day. I actually made a template that is basically session by session. You just print out multiple of them, and you practice 1, practice 2, practice 3. Although every time the car's on the track, I'll send it over to you afterwards, and you can pick it apart and tell me what you think. But maybe it would be helpful.
Yeah,
It's
for
just a
sure.
quick little template. But okay. So then next question is, one RC race every racer should go to.
Um, I mean, for oval, the one we just did, the Chili Bowl is kind of that. I haven't been to Motorama. I am, obviously I'm going this year, but that's always one that's been on the bucket list just because of all the stuff you can do that's not RC related. Um, and then kind of the prevailing theme right now is anytime you go to Trackside Hobbies, just because if you want to see like how to, for track owners, how to have a good culture, it's go to Trackside. Those guys are all awesome, and they have a good group of dudes across oval and off road. And yeah, so I plan on going to the duels this year. Just like being up there. There's good dudes.
I tell everybody trackside is my favorite track I've never been to, and so I plan on making it up to the duels as well. So hopefully I'll get to meet you up there. But
Sweet.
another thing, I don't know if you knew or not, but through Scale Labs and everything's been going so well, we're actually, my wife and I is opening up a racetrack here on our property this summer. So we're going to have a dirt oval here in central Indiana. We don't have anything in central Indiana.
Nice.
Everything's either north or south of us. So we're going to be, as soon as the weather turns, we're going to be building it and going about that.
Congratulations.
So oh, thank you. Yeah, but I want to get up there to trackside, because I've heard that's the second or third time I've heard that this week, is the culture that trackside has. I want to make sure that I get up and experience that before we have our first race, so that I can understand and frankly copy or mimic it the best that I can.
Yep.
So cool. And then so before we get to our very, very last question, we had a couple call-ins, and I'm sure you'll know who these guys were if you haven't looked at the post announcing that you're going to be on the show. But the World Championship is cool. You're world champion now. Great. That's all fantastic. But we really need to understand what it's like to be the intergalactic champion.
I was like, I don't know, I was 14. This was like I won this e-buggy race in San Antonio, Texas, at this like little tiny track, and the trophy was bigger than me, and it was like intergalactic world champion or something like that. And yeah, the boys in the group chat have made fun of me for going on 14 or 15 years now for that. So yeah, that it was fun. It was cool when I was that age, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. And then Ryan Ralph says that he heard that you've saved 7 kids from a burning building, and it was wild. And I said that I heard that it was 9, but we'll get the record straight on the podcast. So I'm sure he wanted to shoot you some shit here while you're on too.
What's Ralph's number on the side of his car? I don't know off the top of my head, but whatever his number is on the side of his car, that was the amount of kids.
That was the amount of kids. Gotcha.
Yep.
I believe his Ryan was on the podcast, and so I should know what his number is. I have his comment pulled up here. I can get it real quick, but I should definitely know that, and I don't. 16 is what's on my mind, but that doesn't feel right.
That might be right.
If it was 16 kids, that seems pretty cool.
Yeah, like a school bus load, light work.
76.
There we go. Even better. 3 school bus loads. So, I don't know. Sounds right.
Or ST16. Hell, I can't read. So ST16, or he's got some goofy numbers on there. Either way, somewhere between 16 and 76 kids were saved. So you're a badass, and that's all there is to it.
Thank
and
you.
then very last question, then we're going to get you out of here. Could you give me 1 to 3, preferably 3 people that you think should be on the podcast next?
See if you can get Arnie. He loves to talk. That would be a good one. You said you've had Dustin already. Get Fleur on the podcast. That would be another cool one.
Max is on the list.
Doug Gott would be another cool one.
So I reached out to Doug. I have a lot of respect for Doug, and Doug told me in no certain terms, absolutely not. He will listen and support in any way that he can, and he will type up anything that he needs to type. But he said, "Don't ask again," because he will not do it.
I respected curious how that would go. So that's funny. Then we'll come up with a third one. Get Grant to do one. Grant Riles.
Okay. Grant has my favorite wrap that I've seen on a car with the little handshake and stuff that's on his, or hand symbol and little emoji thing that's on his wings. That's awesome. But yeah, Dustin hasn't. We're going to do a formal episode with Dustin at some point. So I don't know if you know the whole deal, but Dustin lives very close to me. Dustin lives probably 5 minutes from me. So he's came in and crashed the stream when I first started out in my shop and stuff. Now we've turned one of my spare bedrooms into a little studio here and stuff. So, so we'll definitely have Dustin on as a actual formal podcast at some point. But yeah, Dustin's been instrumental in what I'm doing here. And yeah, Max Fleur is on the list as well. And then so I'll reach out to Grant and try to get him on, and then I'll reach out to Arnie too and see if we can get him on. So I think that'd be great. I'd love to have Nathan on too. I think he'd be a cool guy as well. So
you should have him
cool,
do your
man.
hair too. That would be excellent.
Well, I don't. I've got. I don't. I need all the help I can get in the hair department. So whatever we got to do there. But all right, Tyler Hooks, man, I appreciate it. Congratulations from myself and anybody else that's on this podcast listening to you. You earned it. You're the man. I've got nothing but respect for you, and I've got even more respect for you now for all of your industry knowledge and everything you've done in the industry. Thank you for what you do for all of us and help it grow. And I cannot wait to meet you in person someday.
Yeah, thank you guys, and thanks for throwing up the podcast. And like you said, you've got awesome numbers already, so congratulations, and congratulations on the new track and everything. And maybe we'll get up there at some point.
Cool, man. Yeah. Well, you're always welcome. You'll have to come up and check out GFRP and hang out with Dustin, and maybe we can all hang out. So absolutely. But all right, man. Thank you. I appreciate it, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks, everybody.